Atheism claims to be the voice of reason, the worldview built on science, logic, and hard evidence. No gods, no fairy tales, just facts. But is it really that solid? In this video, we're going to challenge that idea. Not to preach, but to think. Does atheism actually live up to its own standards? Or is it built on unexamined assumptions? Maybe even a kind of faith? We'll look at its claims about truth, morality, meaning, and the human experience, and ask the question most atheists avoid. Is atheism actually logical? Let's find out. The burden of proof. In logic, anyone who makes a claim must support it with evidence. Atheists often say they make no claim, they simply lack belief in God, so they bear no burden of proof. If atheism means nothing more than suspension of belief, that's valid. But many atheists go further. They assert, God does not exist. That's a positive claim about reality, and like any claim, it needs justification. Philosopher William Rowe defines atheism as denying the existence of any divine being. Graham Oppy puts it plainly, atheism says there are no gods. If an atheist confidently asserts that God doesn't exist, they're making a knowledge claim, and must offer reasons, not just point to the lack of evidence for God. Atheists often reply, the theist made the first claim, so the burden is on them. True, but if you respond with God doesn't exist, you're also asserting something, and logic demands support for that too. Even Antony Flew, an atheist, recognized this. The onus of proof lies on the man who affirms, but coming to believe that something does or does not exist requires justification. Some try to avoid this by redefining atheism as merely lacking belief, so-called weak atheism. But in practice, even this implies a worldview. If you live as if no gods exist, then you've adopted an implicit belief about reality. You may not claim to know, but you're still betting your life on one side. That's where the contradiction emerges. Atheism often critiques religion for having faith without evidence. Yet strong atheism does something similar when it asserts a universal negative without proof. Even weak atheism, when lived consistently, carries assumptions it cannot empirically prove. The most logically consistent stance, if you find no decisive evidence either way, is agnosticism, a genuine suspension of judgment. We'll return to this idea later. For now, let's examine how atheism handles another crucial question: morality. Morality in a godless universe. Can atheism provide a solid foundation for morality? If there is no God, are good and evil anything more than human opinion? Friedrich Nietzsche famously declared the death of God, and warned of the moral consequences. Without a divine anchor, he argued, traditional values lose their foundation, leaving society vulnerable to nihilism, the belief that life has no objective meaning or moral truth. In his parable of the madman, Nietzsche asks, is there still any up or down, capturing the chaos of a world adrift from absolutes? Albert Camus, though less hostile to moral sentiment, reached a similar conclusion. In a godless universe, he said, life is absurd. We long for meaning, but the universe is silent. Without a creator, right and wrong become human inventions. Camus urged us to create meaning despite this, likening life to Sisyphus pushing his stone uphill, purpose forged in defiance of a meaningless cosmos. Both thinkers admitted, without God, morality lacks an objective foundation. Values become cultural constructs, or personal choices, not truths rooted in the fabric of reality. Nietzsche foresaw a moral revolution, where new values would replace religious ones, but he also knew they would carry less authority. The result? Moral relativism, where nothing is truly sacred or binding. Atheists often respond that we don't need God to be moral. That's true. Many non-believers live ethical lives. But the question isn't whether atheists can act morally, it's whether atheism can justify morality. Most explanations reduce ethics to evolution, empathy, or social contracts. But these are descriptive, not prescriptive. Evolution explains behavior, not whether that behavior is truly right or wrong. If morality is just a product of biology or culture, what do we say to the person who feels no empathy or rejects our norms? On what basis can we say they're wrong, objectively wrong, in a universe that doesn't care? As Dostoevsky's Ivan Karamazov said, if God does not exist, everything is permitted. Even leading atheist thinkers acknowledge this dilemma. Nietzsche embraced the collapse of absolutes. Camus chose to live with dignity anyway. But both recognize that, logically, atheism leads toward moral relativism, not objective moral truth. This doesn't mean atheists are immoral. It means that, within a godless framework, morality is not grounded in any ultimate reality, only in human minds. For those seeking a consistent worldview, this is a serious challenge. The more logically atheism is applied, the more it seems to strip morality of any lasting foundation. Reductionism and the human experience. Atheism is often tied to philosophical materialism, the idea that all of reality is just matter and energy governed by physical laws. If there's no supernatural dimension, then even our deepest experiences, love, beauty, consciousness, purpose, must be reduced to brain chemistry and evolutionary processes. This is known as reductionism. Under this view, the mind is just the brain, a meat computer. Thoughts and emotions, just electrochemical reactions. Love, a dopamine rush designed to promote bonding. Beauty, neural activity in response to sensory patterns. Purpose, an illusion that helped our ancestors survive. Now that might be scientifically consistent, but does it fully explain what it means to be human? Telling someone I love you isn't just describing brain activity. There's a felt, subjective reality that science can describe in pieces, but never fully grasp. From this perspective, even beauty loses its grounding. As an article from Evolution News puts it, evolutionary materialists must believe at some level that the experience of beauty can be reduced to actions of neurons in the brain. Beauty is merely an experience in the physical brain, not an external reality. But when we see a sunset, or hear a moving piece of music, do we really feel that it's just neurons firing, or something more? This is part of what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness. How can first-person experience arise from third-person matter? Why does it feel like anything to be alive? Materialism doesn't have a satisfying answer. Philosopher Thomas Nagel, himself an atheist, argues that the materialist worldview is almost certainly false because it can't explain mind, reason, or consciousness. Others have echoed this, pointing out that morals, values, beauty, meaning, and rationality all resist full reduction to atoms. Even rationality, which atheists prize, is problematic here. If our thoughts are just neuron firings shaped by evolution, not by a concern for truth, then can we trust them? As C.S. Lewis put it, if reason comes from irrational matter, why assume it points to truth? That's the self-defeating tension. Atheism trusts logic, yet its materialist roots undermine the very basis of rationality. There's more. If we are just biochemical machines, then free will becomes an illusion, and human dignity is reduced to a neural pattern. Atheism doesn't necessarily deny that we feel love or value, but it insists those feelings have no deeper grounding. It's a bleak metaphysical picture. Love is chemicals. Morality is social conditioning. Your sense of self is brain activity. Nothing more. And yet, most of us live as if these things mean something. This doesn't prove God exists, but it does suggest that atheism's reductionist lens may be too narrow. By insisting that only the measurable is real, it dismisses the qualitative side of human life. Our inner experience, conscience, meaning, beauty, may be evidence of something more, even if we can't weigh it on a scale. A worldview committed to reason should consider all the data, including what it feels like to be human. If atheism ignores or flattens that data to fit its philosophy, it's no longer following the evidence. It's restricting it. In the end, materialism might explain mechanisms, but it fails to explain meaning. And if atheism is grounded in materialism, then perhaps it too is incomplete. The unexamined atheist worldview. Here's the irony. Many atheists pride themselves on being rational, skeptical thinkers, champions of science, reason, and logic. But if you dig just beneath the surface, you often find that many have not fully examined the philosophical implications of their own worldview. Consider how many atheists approach their position passively, as if simply rejecting belief exempts them from deeper inquiry. But in practice, many live and argue with full confidence that there is no God, without ever confronting what that actually implies. This isn't just neutrality, it's a worldview with consequences, one that often borrows moral and philosophical depth from traditions it claims to outgrow. Many atheists also assume that denying the metaphysical somehow makes them more intelligent, but that assumption is itself a philosophical position, and one that contradicts their moral instincts. After all, morality itself is a metaphysical category. If you care about justice, dignity, human rights, you already believe in something that transcends biology. You are not simply following chemical impulses. You are appealing to something higher. Yet, rather than explore this tension, many dismiss it outright. They mock the concept of God as a fairy tale, without grasping what they are rejecting. The idea of God is not just about a figure in the sky. It's a philosophical question about the ground of being, the origin of existence, and the ultimate source of meaning, morality, and mind. Even if you don't believe in a personal deity, you can't seriously engage the deepest human questions without confronting the idea of God. Ask yourself, what caused the universe to exist instead of nothing? Why do we feel bound by moral law even when it costs us? What is consciousness, and why does it matter? Why does beauty move us, or love change us? In every one of these, the God question appears, not as superstition, but as a genuine philosophical contender. So when someone casually says, "I don't believe in God," that's just fairy tales, it's often not the voice of reason speaking. It's the voice of someone who hasn't thought deeply enough. This doesn't mean you should become religious, but it does mean you should be careful before making absolute claims about the nature of existence. If anything, the most grounded position isn't dogmatic atheism, it's thoughtful agnosticism. Doubt is good. Skepticism is healthy, but only if it leads to seeking truth, not closing the door on it. A truly rational mind keeps asking questions, especially when the answers make us uncomfortable. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. May the light guide you, brothers and sisters. I'll see you on the other side.